years, and you know, have they had the kind of game they need to if they're going to come up against a big physical tough team?
Yeah, Kilkenny did very well against Galway in the air yesterday. I guess both defences did. They were just so
it was a battle between the full backs really at one point as well. Yeah. But I mean, like, look, let's call it hashtag Cody time, because Kilkenny's ability to come back at the end of that game. I mean, everybody was saying, oh, they're in transition, they're not going to come back, and just the way they came back in that game. And what struck me really about it was Richie Power's pass.
Hogan.
Oh, Richie Hogan's pass. Richie Hogan's pass, like...
Which one?
Well, the one at the end for the second last point, that was the one. And I thought, if you went down to Munster, would a Clare player have gone for a score from there, or would he picked out that pass? And I think that's the difference. It's just... like, it's always been that team ethic, with Kilkenny. It doesn't matter what kind of a superstar you are, you know, we know. And Richie's coming off the bench now, and still he has the vision to see that pass, pick off that score, and then TJ Reid's score at the final score was just fantastic. I mean, it was comparable to, you know, Joe Canning's last year. But I think it's interesting. Everyone is saying, oh, Kilkenny will be happier. I don't see that. I think that Galway didn't play well at all yesterday, and I think they have a load of improvement to do.
There's a nagging feeling Kilkenny have missed a great chance yesterday. Yeah,
everyone somebody seemed to be saying, oh, that was brilliant for Kilkenny because they've blooded so many new championship players and people who hadn't played in Croke Park in a championship game before. But like, if you looked at Galway, they really didn't play well at all. You know, apart from Dahi Burke, who stood out. You know, a lot of people underperformed. And I also think people are saying, oh, they don't have the motivation to go again this year, and you know, that's going to be tough. But they didn't beat Kilkenny last year in championship, and I think that's also going to be a thing. And now you have the added intrigue that whoever loses the replay is going to be going 3 weeks in a row, and we've seen what that's done to people this summer. So I think there's actually, even, you could argue there's not just a title at stake in this replay, but there's actually also a route that's tougher if you lose it.
It feels right. It feels too extreme to say Galway were anyway complacent, but there just wasn't that edge to their performance that you would expect, especially for a Kilkenny game. And maybe it is very difficult when the whole country has anointed you All-Ireland champions again in waiting, and when you beat them so thoroughly in Pearse Stadium, it must be difficult to approach it with any level of fear, the good fear that you need.
Yeah, and maybe that previous game, all right, didn't help in some ways, in that there, you know, maybe there's a little bit of complacency. But sometimes I think with hurling as well, it's such a touch thing that sometimes you just don't click, you know. Kilkenny were smart. They avoided high balls in on top of Gerard McInerney, so that kind of took him out of the game, whereas he's been very influential in that past year for them. But up front, like, so many people didn't perform, you know. So I think Galway would have much more improving to do. But it is interesting, and it is such a testament to Brian Cody. And he said something yesterday, Joe, and it made me laugh, because we hear so much nonsense out of managers and so much corporate speak. I thought it was the quote of the day.
Gobbledygook, I think, is the official term.
It's a ruder name for it. But his quote at the end of the day, which was brilliant, was about, you know, how they're progressing. And he said, you're supposed to progress as the year goes on, otherwise the training wouldn't be up to much. And it's just like, that is such a that speaks such sense, and it speaks so much of, I'd say, exactly what happens down there.
I know. We'll play some of his interview out later that he did with Oisín at full time. But again, there's too much common sense in Cody. You know, it's like, I know there must be more to it than that. Because at one point Oisín was saying, you know, it was a mad game to get your head around. What was it like for you? And blah blah blah. And you know, both teams nullified each other at times, and it was a bit helter skelter. And he just said, yeah, but that's hurling. So, you know, all you can do is win the next ball and then try and make a decision when you do that.
I know, like, if they're talking about...
He hates metaphors as well. Somebody said to him, I don't know if it was Oisín or perhaps the RTE interviewers were saying, I was a real arm wrestle out there, Brian, wasn't it? No, it's a game of hurling.
I think Oisín was claiming afterwards he was giving him the job of managing them, basically. But it is that, like, it is organised chaos.
He did say to Oisín, I didn't know what was going on out
there. Which is not true. No, but I think it's really interesting. Like, he's got a bench now with people like John Donnelly and Blanchfield and Colin Fennelly and Richie coming off the bench, which at the beginning of the year we were saying, oh, you know, they don't have enough players. But now he's got the young guys doing well, James Maher and people doing really well, Paddy Deegan, And then he also has players to come in and make an impact, you know.
I mean, if Tommy Welch was on updates for us yesterday, who, by the way, refused to even acknowledge the fact that his brother was having the game of his life. Until we're like, look, Tommy, we know it's not nepotism. You have to mention Porrick here.
While asking him for a Screwfix man of the match yesterday as well, he was going for either one of the cornerbacks. He was going for James Maher or Paddy Deegan. He refused to name the brother.
What about the guy in the middle?
Yeah.
A nice shirt too by Tommy yesterday.
Wasn't it? Very Stade Francais.
Very impressive turn.
But he was saying Richie Hogan was moving very well. He was watching him off the ball. He was saying, yeah, look, he looks to be moving fine and he's in the game. So, I mean, look, if you could get even 40, 50 minutes out of Richie Hogan. Because I agree, for all the talk of physical dominance and just big hits and these mad rucks where you felt whoever got the ball in their hand in those closing 2 minutes was going to win the game.
Yeah.
It's the composure of one of the smallest players in the country.
And the vision. You know, he sees, you know, those people that are gifted, you think they have actually this peripheral vision, probably this thing that they have. He sees stuff, you know, and that's what's so brilliant about him. So I just thought that yesterday, that was just brilliant.
Magic, yeah. I can barely see Richie from here. I'd be scared to see what Richie Hogan can see.
You're better off, Joe. You're not missing much.
Tony in Portlaoise, Munster for the purists, Leinster for the realists. When the two clash, there will only be one winner. A good big one always beats a good small one. We'll certainly put that to John Myler later on and see what he makes of it.
I think Tommy Walsh might take issue with that as well.
That's true, yeah. We've asked Tommy Walsh, by the way, to give us his secret of timing the catches against bigger players.
Yeah, the hang time he seems to have, And Porrick has a bit of it as well.
Tommy says he refuses to give away the secret until he retires from club hurling, and then he'll part with it. So
that's competitive.
I know, I look forward to that. Joe Cody's common sense was made manifest yesterday. If you drag the game down to a physical battle, you give your less experienced team a better chance, says Deirdre. Maybe that's true. And then I guess we better address this, a few texts here. Congratulations on the après match sketch, Laj. A sure sign you've made it when people are taking the Michael out of you, from Lenny and Longford. Joe, don't mind the GA. What about après match at 5 o'clock? I don't know who the others were, but the league guy was definitely you. Yes, I was the incredibly pretentious, pseudo-intellectual, droning on.
Nailed it. They nailed it. Fair play to Richard.
The one thing they got wrong was they had me in a Who t-shirt.
Yeah, you would never do that.
Which I'm not cool enough to pull off.
That's more Richie's stuff.
That's you.
More Richie,
It was more, to be fair to them, it was an amalgam, I think, of ourselves and second captains, because the Barry Murphy character was making a noise that I presume only Ken Early can actually make.
Is that right?
It was
yeah. Either way, drenched in self-importance, Cliona. That's what we...
well, if they're not talking about it, isn't it worse?
That's the vibe we're giving off. So let's get through this news round. We are here with thanks to screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. And Richie, you're starting with the World Cup today.
Yeah, scoreless in Rostov, 12 and a half, nearly 13 minutes played there. Japan 0, Belgium 0. Wholesale changes for Belgium, as you might imagine. 10 from the side that beat England last time out. Romelu Lukaku fit enough to take his place up front and looking bright so far as the first start of the tournament for Vincent Kompany. Japan coach Akira Nishino has made 6 changes to his side, reverting to the starting 11 that faced both Colombia and Senegal and served them so well. Brazil are through to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Second half goals from Neymar and Roberto Firmino, both from close range, gave the 5-time winners a 2-0 win over Mexico in Samara. Brazil will face the winners of tonight's meeting. That game will be in Kazan in the last 8 on Friday. Meanwhile, Colombia are hopeful that James Rodriguez will be fit for tomorrow night's last 16 meeting with England. The influential playmaker was taken for an MRI scan on Saturday, but it showed minor swelling rather than any serious injury to his calf. Rodriguez limped out of Thursday's win over Senegal.
My favourite World Cup tidbit from the last 24 hours was in the Observer yesterday. Their World Cup version of Said and Done, where they just had a few quotes from Maradona and pictures of him giving everybody the middle finger. And I hadn't realised he has been at all these matches as a FIFA goodwill ambassador.
That's why it's so ridiculous that he was in there smoking cigars, and whatever else.
And that he's getting 10,000 sterling a day. A day.
Is there one per country? Because,
I don't know.
Because I was watching last night and they were fixated on Peter Schmeichel for obvious reasons and Davor Šuker, and they were both in around the same kind of area. Valderrama's always there for the Colombia matches as well. He'll be there El Pibe tomorrow night.
Schmeichel was behind glass though, at least.
Was he? I wouldn't say everyone's getting 10 grand a day, Diego style.
Diego's on the upper scale.
Well, yeah.
Peter
2 watches. Did you see the 2 watches?
Yeah, obligatory 2 watches, of course.
It's the 2 phones you want to watch out for.
So, what games did you catch over the weekend or today? Has your life been completely consumed by this whole thing?
It was mostly GA at the weekend, I have to say, but unfortunately, I saw a lot of penalties, and the Croatia-Denmark game kind of freaked me out because I can't understand how a 17-year-old kid playing for Ireland gets pulled up on moving off the line, and virtually every penalty in that game, and in the penalty shootout, but also Schmeichel came off the line for the one in
for Modric's in real time.
Yeah, in real time. And
maybe it's easier to pull up a 17-year-old kid.
I tell you what, though,
here we go, and they give out a lack of consistency in the GAA.
It's all we want.
Drill it into them young. But Martin O'Neill was far more sanguine about it last night on ITV than he was during that game. When Ireland were involved. When he came down from the stand, he was laughing it off against Slaven Bilic last night.
Was he?
Yeah, it wasn't much to think about at all.
Well, the point is, like, why have the rule if you can't? Now, I think it's probably an instinctive thing. If you're a goalie, it's very hard not to come off the line.
Yeah.
But they were so blatant. And if you pull them up once on it, wouldn't it at least, you know, make them cautious?
Yeah, it's a fair point, We'll be talking Spain later on with Pat Nevin. I just caught some of Pat on 5 Live last night when I was driving home, and he was just livid with Spain. He just thought they were so arrogant.
Incandescent.
He's like, because the presenter, Kelly Cates, said to him, but they had 1,000 passes plus, Pat. He said, I'm not counting about 800 of them because they were just along their own halfway line. It was like a zone defence, and they were just playing around in circles. You see the heat map. BBC showed the heat map, and it was right in the middle of the pitch.
Okay. There was nothing in front or behind.
Yeah,
there was just nobody making.
A lot more off.
Well, they were, but they also sacked their coach in the eve of the tournament. Struggled past Iran. And had a really nothing game against Morocco. They haven't been in any kind of form in this World Cup at all, so it's not that much of a surprise.
I forget they sacked their coach.
Yeah.
It feels like about 4 years ago. With all the talk of the condition Galway are in and the prevalence of strength and conditioning coaches nowadays in GAA, says John in Dublin, surely the 3 weeks in a row line should be dismissed as a poor excuse. They're all working, though, in fairness to them. Like, they are amateurs. I don't think S&C best practice includes getting up first thing the next morning, going to work, potentially on a building site, working your ass off for 40 hours a week and training that evening. Yeah, you know, it's not best practice.
Well, it's not, and also the players also make the point that it isn't the physicality of it, it's the mental thing. It's having to lift yourself again after it. And sort of speaking on mental things, I was really struck by the difference between Cork and Clare yesterday, and I just think Clare, it's a recurring problem for them, this lack of, what would you call it, precision. You know, hurling is such a precision game now, and it's all about composure and precision, and the influence, I think, of Gary Keegan, you know, the ex-boxing guy, and who's been involved with Cork. I think that's telling this summer. I think you can see them.
They've had a string of those
when they've
halves.
Been up against the wire in second halves, they pushed through, and they didn't used to have that before. They'd still be flaking wild shots in recent years, but I think there's a big difference there. You know, I think you can see it.
Yeah, and John Myler's given Keegan his head clearly, because Myler would have had the reputation as an old school type. You know, he's been around a long time, managing for 30 years, so clearly he's bought into.
Well, he did an awful lot right yesterday in terms of all the positional changes he made at half time were also fantastic. But it was that leadership, that composure under pressure. Literally, you could see at half time, you could see Cork saying, "We've got this," because we've played badly. And also that Clare thing yesterday was like, you know, this pumping to the crowd in the first 2 minutes on a hot day. That's not when you want to be going 100 miles an hour. You want to be pacing yourself.
What you watched back the Leinster final yesterday, that didn't enter into it until about the hour mark. Yeah. And it was from very key pivotal moments when the game was very close late on.
I think that, you know, I think that's what Clare, they're just lacking that pacing and that kind of composure. And I just think, like, they've tons of brilliant players, but that's no good if you're going to panic on the big days. And I just thought they panicked yesterday.
Yeah, fair point. So Chris Froome was the big news this afternoon, Rich.
Yeah, he says he's looking forward to challenging for a 5th Tour de France title. The Team Sky rider today cleared of any wrongdoing by the UCI after a sample taken at last year's Vuelta showed twice the legal level of salbutamol. Just yesterday, Tour de France organisers ASO had threatened to exclude Froome from this year's race while his case remained open. Both WADA and the UCI say Froome's sample did not constitute what they call an adverse analytical finding. In their statement today, the UCI said after the evidentiary phase, Mr Froome requested additional information from WADA about the salbutamol regime. Following receipt of information from WADA, Mr Froome then filed his explanation for the abnormal result on the 4th of June of this year, together with significant additional expert evidence, they say. Froome, though, wasn't giving anything away today about the nature of that evidence.
It's been obviously 9 months of work to get to this point, and I'm not a scientist either, but basically, I mean, my defence has always been that I've never taken I've had asthma since I was a kid, and I've never taken more medication than has been permitted. And the authorities, the UCI and WADA, who are the experts on this, that had the elevated sample.
We'll have Dr. Ross Tucker on this in about 15 minutes' time, get his take on it all. It seems there were 1,500 pages of evidence provided by the legal counsel for Chris Froome. And I know Dr. Ross Tucker's basic point is you can just muddy the waters here so massively that when all WADA have to work with is one urine sample, it gets very difficult to uphold the ban. And the general tone of the press release today from the UCI was, well, look, WADA have looked at this and it's all fine. And WADA's general press release was, we've looked at the science, we're not going to tell you what it all was, but just trust us, it's fine.
That's really, really grim.
This is exactly what the problem is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and it's really interesting that David Brailsford, you know, why should we use the phrase sir, as they all do in Britain all the time, you know, they're talking about variations, you know, in metabolism, right? And they're saying that, you know, a review of all of Chris's 21 tests during the Vuelta revealed that the stage 18 results were within his expected range of variation, right? And WADA said they got unparalleled access to information and the authorship of the salbutamol regime. And you think, well, actually, the rest of us would love to get that access as well. That's what's wrong with all of this, is we don't know. And the other thing is that there were 2 Italian cyclists. So basically, for me, what they're saying is that it compromises the whole testing system, because they're saying that you can personally have variations in your salbutamol level because of your metabolism. So what about, does that mean that people who've got banned from salbutamol before, there were 2 other cyclists in the past, can now say, hold on, we should never have been banned because, you know, our metabolism is different?
I think one of them came out today and said he's not going to seek to overturn that ban.
Well, I think Ross Tucker tweeted this morning saying the thing is in tatters now for that very reason. It's a big issue, and they have a facility whereby you can try and recreate the conditions in a control lab and test how your body reacts to salbutamol. And they were going to try and do that in Froome's case. But then WADA said, well, look, it's actually impossible, because he claims he was sick at the time, for instance. There were a few other factors. So how do you even recreate that? So it's actually impossible to prove just on the urine sample.
And wasn't one of their arguments earlier on that his kidneys weren't functioning correctly? Like, this is a big remove from his kidneys weren't functioning. This is saying, oh, I metabolize salbutamol differently on one day from another, and we don't know what the reasons for that were.
And the problem is, how do WADA prove that he's wrong? Like, the burden of proof, it seems, has almost gone back onto WADA.
Well, and I know, I've looked at some cases before very closely. You know, one scientist can say something and another scientist can say something completely different, and they can go into the same hearing, and the people on the thing will believe one scientist and they won't believe another.
The timing of this not off for anybody else.
Yeah, I know, it is mad that just yesterday it looked like he was going to be out of the race completely, and now he's going for his 3rd consecutive Grand Tour. So we'll talk to Ross Tucker in about 10 minutes time or so. Alex Ferguson says somebody called the pre-Pep Barcelona team in 08 as a passing carousel. Spain looked like that last night, round and round and round, but going nowhere. Yeah, it really did. It looked like they'd kind of gone back to square zero. Wimbledon then has started. God, there really is too much sport on. I didn't even know Wimbledon was started today.
Safely through is Serena Williams to round 2, the 7-time champion beating Arantxa Rus of Luxembourg 7-5, 6-3 this afternoon. Sloane Stephens, meanwhile, says a lack of preparation was not behind her first round exit. The world number 4 lost in round 1 to Donna Vekic of Croatia in straight sets. Stephens reached last month's French Open final but didn't play a single warm-up tournament on grass. The US Open champion only arrived in London on Friday, and she seemed equally as laid back about her exit.
Yeah, every player is different, but I think that I did what was best for myself, and every year is different, so maybe next year I'll play a different schedule, maybe not, just kind of depends.
Second seed Caroline Wozniacki made light work of Varvara Lepchenko, beating the American 6-love, 6-3 in just under an hour. A 5-time champ Venus Williams recovered from losing the first set to beat Johanna Larsson in 3. Last year's semi-finalist Magdalena Rybarikova, though, outbeaten in straight sets by Sorana Cirstea. Men's defending champion Roger Federer, he needed just 79 minutes to beat Dusan Lajovic in straight sets today. Coming into the tournament, Federer claimed he'd take 6 games to figure out how to play a different match, but that process happened even quicker today.
I was nervous in the warm-up, you know, in the 5-minute hitting, and then when the match started, I really felt like nerves settled. I returned well quickly, felt my legs were moving, and that's then what gave me, you know, the confidence quickly to see, like, okay, I think I know very quickly within 2 to 4 games what I need to do to cause problems for Lajovic. I also watched some of the match I played against him last year. My legs were really not moving, and also Severin and Ivan gave me good advice, and I think that all settled my nerves again. So yeah, it actually took me faster than 6 games to figure everything out, and court played great, so it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be back here.
There you go, Roger Federer. Stan Wawrinka back with a bang. He recovered from knee trouble and losing the first set 6-1 to beat the 6-seed Grigor Dimitrov in a thriller in 4 on centre court. Third seed Marin Cilic beat Japan's Yoshihito Nishioka 6-1, 6-4, 6-4. While there are also victories today for Sam Querrey, John Isner and Milos Raonic. The dates and times for the 4 All-Ireland football qualifiers were set earlier on today. O'Moore Park in Portlaoise will host a double bill on Saturday with Roscommon facing Armagh from 3 and Cork up against Tyrone at 5. The winner of the latter will have a home game against Dublin in the so-called Super 8s. Navan's going to be busy this weekend with Kildare facing Fermanagh on Saturday from 7, while Laois will take on Monaghan at Port Talton on Sunday from 2. Meanwhile, Netwatch Cullen Park will host the preliminary hurling quarter-final meeting of Carlow and Limerick, while Wexford will travel to Mullingar to face Westmeath. Both of those games will throw in at 7 on Saturday evening. Mo Salah will be a Liverpool player for the foreseeable future. The Egyptian forward signed a new 5-year deal at Anfield today, just a year after his arrival. His debut season saw him harvest 44 goals even in all competitions. Liverpool returned to pre-season training today, but did so without their assistant boss Željko Buvac. The Bosnian was given leave of absence towards the end of last season, but his situation remains unresolved and now appears unlikely to return.
Lads, no mention of the match in Newbridge. Best football of the weekend. I was in a soccer pub. Everyone switched from the soccer to the Gaelic. Some compliment to amateur players. Is Dave in Tullamore? Huh? Do you know what that means? Is Dave McIntyre in Tullamore? I don't know where Dave McIntyre is. Or is that Dave in Tullamore?
I think it's Dave in Tullamore,
Could be Dave in Tullamore.
I know we haven't mentioned it. God, yeah, well, we talked about it a good bit yesterday. I thought it was a gripping game. I thought it was brilliant. Don't know, did you get to see
it was. I had another job and I couldn't stay, and I was disgusted. But
I thought Kildare were gassed after 15.
Yeah, they just. Like Newbridge does that to them, though, you know, and that's why it was so important for them to have that game at home. Like they were outnumbered on the terraces, and yet still there was that, you know, that strong feeling. And also, like there's just something about them. Oh, so many big qualifier games they've won, going back to their very first one, Donegal in 2001 in Newbridge. It's just a place they love to play in. And the other thing that struck me, and I think it hasn't been said enough today, is people have bemoaned the fact that Mayo are gone, you know, and that we might not see some of their players again. But I think what a loss to the Super 8s Mayo are.
I know.
Like, they're the kind of team that you really, all the neutrals love them. There's always something crazy happens in their games. They're always entertaining. They're always produce thrillers.
Yeah.
And they're now out of the Super 8s. And I think we all presumed they were going to be in the Super 8s. And I think it's just something that's maybe been passed out. I think Kildare, you know, Fermanagh, it's a great draw for them as well.
Yeah, it's very winnable for Kildare.
Yeah. And they have to learn how to beat it. They haven't been brilliant at breaking down blanket defences before.
Yeah.
But they have natural guys with speed, and then they also have a bench. Again, their bench did it for them at the weekend, and just to see somebody like O'Callaghan coming in and just getting that point, you know, one of the old guard, you would have said, you know, I thought that was brilliant to see as well. But look, they obviously had huge motivation. Mayo had injuries, ran out of road.
I think there was a moment where Dermot O'Connor was running after a ball and seized up, and he kept trying to run. I was like, how much has this man run today?
And in fairness, I thought there was a harsh call, that pick-up ball, and I think there was only a point in it, and it was deep into injury time, and he got pulled for picking the ball off the ground in the square. I thought that was actually a pretty tough call.
Yeah.
But after that, then just Kildare pushed on, and look, I just think Mayo are a loss. I think not just for whoever we might lose in the future, but I think for the rest of the summer they're a loss.
Okay. Just to clarify things, I've just seen Dave McIntyre in a spar in Tullamore. Cheers. I just feel like Dave McIntyre has a right to privacy, and we shouldn't really be broadcasting these things. But we're going to talk to Billy Joe Padden later on about the game in Newbridge. And does he expect Mayo just to rebound and do brilliant things next year, or is this approaching end of era territory? I guess if a glut of them go, then that's very hard. But
the worry would
one or two stay.
The worry would be that they would lose, 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah,
Higgins,
exactly.
more, and you'd worry about.
Exactly. Colin Boyle.
Boyle.
I mean, and the ridiculous thing is that so many of those guys are playing so brilliantly and are so fit at this stage in their career, in their 30s. Like, some of them have, I mean, Andy Moran is just ridiculous what he's done to himself in the last few years, how fit he's become. Yeah, no,
you're right though about the Super 8s. You just knew that if Mayo were there, they'd be involved in some stupid games.
They just bring that, and their supporters bring that thrill to everybody as well, you know.
Yeah. It's still 0-0 between Belgium and Japan, 30 minutes on the clock. Cliona, thanks a million for coming in. Much appreciated. Richie, thank you for the news round. We have plenty of GAA, including John Myler, after after 8 o'clock. But up next, we'll have Dr. Ross Tucker explain this Chris Froome story to us.
Off the Ball on Newstalk.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
Great news! We've just won that new contract we've been waiting to hear about.
Means we'll need to hire new staff.
Yeah, and we'll need to purchase new vehicles.
Purchase? Why? When they can all drive a Europe car.
Whatever you need to drive, from vans to cars, Europe Car can provide the vehicles you want with no capital expenditure, no contract, no ties, and on the road tomorrow. Europe Car, moving your way.
Hi, I'm Brendan Kavanagh, CEO of GDPRcourse.com. GDPR became law on Friday, May 25th. Are you worried that your business, volunteer organisation or club is at risk of being fined? We now run daily accredited GDPR practical implementation courses at our nationwide training facilities. This course gives members of your organisation tasked with GDPR the practical tools to implement and maintain GDPR compliance. Don't get ripped off by expensive consultants. Go to GDPRcourse.com.
Bruce Betting are one of Ireland's leading bookmakers. Download the iOS app today to see why Bruce Betting are giving you more for World Cup 2018. Bruce Betting, your World Cup bookmaker. In store, online, and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's not all fun and games being the dog in this family. The excuses I get when it's time for a run. It's lashing out. The beach is miles away. The dog ate the car keys. Well, they've got nothing to worry about. Sure, they've got AA